Right now, as you're watching this, OpenAI is preparing to flip the switch on GPT 5.6 tomorrow, July 9th. But here's what most people don't realize. This isn't just another model update. This is the first time OpenAI's released a new flagship model after the world started paying serious attention to AI safety. That means there was a gate, regulators, safety checks, the whole process. And OpenAI just got the green light. Think of it like this. When a pharmaceutical company releases a new medication, they don't just hope it works. They prove it's safe to the FDA first. GPT 5.6 is AI's version of that proof. Tomorrow's release is the moment that proof becomes public, and it's going to be the fastest adopted AI model ever released. We are talking billions of people will have access within days. That's not hyperbole, it's just how the internet works now. So what exactly did OpenAI have to prove to get this permission? What capabilities does 5.6 have that made regulators nervous? And what does this mean for the rest of the AI industry scrambling to keep up? That's what we are breaking down today. So how do we get to a place where OpenAI needs permission to release a model? 4 years ago, AI wasn't regulated. Nobody was watching. You could release a model and people would argue about whether it was safe, but there was no official process. GPT-5 changed that. When it came out in 2025, it was so capable at reasoning, problem-solving, and handling complex tasks that governments started paying attention. The European Union passed their AI Act. The United States started exploring AI safety standards. China introduced their own regulations. Suddenly, there were real rules, real oversight, real consequences. OpenAI, being the company that's been out front on AI safety from the beginning, realized GPT 5.6 was going to be even more capable than 5.0. Think of it like a car manufacturer. If your new sedan is faster and more powerful, you need to prove it's safe for highways before you sell it. So OpenAI ran through the gauntlet. They tested edge cases. They ran red team exercises where security experts tried to break the model. They documented every safety mechanism. By the time they applied for deployment permission, which was brand new for the industry, they had documentation that looked like a legal filing. Thousands of pages. Regulators reviewed it, asked questions, OpenAI answered, and then came the green light. So what exactly is GPT 5.6? It's the next step in OpenAI's reasoning model line. GPT-5 introduced long-form thinking. The model could spend time reasoning through problems step by step instead of just pattern matching. GPT 5.6 takes that further. It can reason longer, deeper, and on more complex domains. Think of it like the difference between a person who thinks out loud and makes snap decisions versus someone who takes an hour to work through a problem carefully. GPT-5 was the person thinking out loud with decent results. GPT 5.6 is that person after they've started keeping detailed notes of their reasoning process. The specific improvements are in 3 areas. First, reasoning depth. GPT 5.6 can hold more steps in mind when solving complex problems, which matters for advanced mathematics, physics simulations, and logical proofs. Second, domain knowledge. It's trained on more recent data, everything up to July 2026, so it understands current events, recent developments, and the state of the art as it exists right now. That's huge because most language models are trained on data from a year or more ago. Third, accuracy across difficult tasks. Benchmark scores show GPT 5.6 outperforming GPT-5 by 15 to 22% on reasoning-heavy evaluations. That's substantial. That's the difference between a model that's good and one that's genuinely excellent at what it does. Here's what that means in practice. If you're a researcher at a biotech company trying to understand protein folding patterns, GPT 5.6 won't just fetch an answer from the internet. It'll work through the logic with you, showing its reasoning step by step. If you're a software engineer debugging a complex system, GPT 5.6 can hold your entire architecture in mind across multiple turns of conversation. It won't lose context the way earlier models did. If you're a student studying for exams, you get a tutor that doesn't just give you answers, but explains the path to reaching the answer. The practical use case that matters most right now: code generation and debugging at scale. developers have been using GPT-5 to write code for the past year. GPT-5.6 will write better code, understand more complex requirements, and catch subtle bugs that previous versions would miss. That's genuinely transformative. Consider this: a developer who typically writes 50 lines of production code per day could write 70 or 80 instead. Now multiply that across millions of developers worldwide, and you're looking at a productivity boost that could change quarterly earnings for entire software companies. That kind of leverage is rare in technology. And here's what makes this particularly scary for everyone else in the industry. So where does GPT 5.6 sit relative to competitors? Claude 3.5 from Anthropic is excellent at reasoning, but it's not quite as fast in iteration. Gemini 2.0 from Google has improved significantly, but it's still catching up on reasoning depth. AI's Grok is good for reasoning too, but lacks the training data breadth that matters for current events. DeepSeek from China has been impressive on benchmarks, but faces geopolitical barriers to distribution outside Asia. What OpenAI has with GPT 5.6 is straightforward: the best reasoning model in the world, released at scale, with the biggest installed base. Every iPhone, every web browser, every enterprise deployment already has a pipeline to ChatGPT Plus and ChatGPT Pro. That means OpenAI doesn't need to convince people to try it. It just shows up in their inbox. It's like if Apple released the fastest chip in the world and put it in iPhones first. Everyone with an iPhone gets it instantly. For competitors, that's terrifying. They can make better models, but adoption takes time, distribution channels, and user habit changes. OpenAI has none of those obstacles. They have the distribution already built into the foundation. That's the competitive advantage that matters most in AI right now, not pure capability, but capability plus distribution. And tomorrow, that gap just got wider. What does this mean for the job market? This is the part that makes economists nervous. When tools get this good this fast, white-collar jobs start disappearing before we have policy to handle it. In the last 6 months, we've seen companies lay off entire analysis teams because GPT-5 can do what took 5 people 3 days in under an hour. GPT 5.6 will accelerate that pattern significantly. Think about junior programmers, the people who learn on the job. If GPT 5.6 can write 70% of the code, what happens to the entry-level jobs that teach people how to become senior programmers? That's not just an economic problem, that's an industry pipeline problem. But there's a flip side. Jobs that require human judgment, creativity, and interpersonal skills become more valuable, not less. The person who can take GPT 5.6's output and shape it into something brilliant, who can think about problems GPT 5.6 hasn't seen yet, that person becomes more valuable to employers. The skill isn't knowing how to code anymore. It's knowing how to direct an AI to code for you. It's thinking about what you want it to build and why. That's a transition that's going to cause real disruption. And that's probably exactly why regulators wanted that permission process in the first place. So tomorrow, GPT 5.6 rolls out. Here's what you need to know. If you use ChatGPT, you'll get an automatic upgrade if you're on ChatGPT Plus. Nothing you need to do, it just works. If you use ChatGPT Pro, same thing. If you don't have a subscription, you'll still get access to a slower, queued version the same way you do now with GPT 4.0. If you use Claude or Gemini, it'll take a few weeks for those teams to release their next big models in response, which is normal in this industry. The speed advantage today is OpenAI's. How should you actually use GPT 5.6 when it lands? Start with complex reasoning tasks. Ask it to solve problems step by step. Ask it to review code or writing and explain why it made its suggestions. Ask it questions that require holding multiple pieces of information in mind simultaneously. The areas where it'll feel most different from GPT-5 are ones where subtle reasoning matters. Don't waste it on simple lookups or basic writing. Use it for things that actually need extended thinking and problem decomposition. And when you see it make a mistake, because it will. No model is perfect. Remember the gap between GPT 5.6 and the next best model. That gap is significant, but here's the plot twist. Here's what this means for you and everyone else watching. Tomorrow, the AI race just got more intense. OpenAI's move tomorrow is a signal to the world. We're not slowing down. We're not waiting for policy. We are shipping at scale. That puts pressure on everyone else. Google, Meta, Microsoft, every startup in the space. They have to move faster or fall further behind. But there's something bigger happening underneath all this. The permission process worked. Regulators reviewed a model, asked hard questions, and OpenAI proved it was safe enough to deploy globally. That's the model for every release going forward. It's not optional anymore. And that means the next generation of AI, whatever comes after 5.6, gets even more scrutiny and safety testing. That's actually good news for everyone. It means we are taking safety seriously even as we push capabilities forward. So here's what to watch for in the next 48 hours. Watch how many people adopt it. Watch how fast third-party apps integrate it into their platforms. Watch how competitors respond with their own announcements. The next chapter of the AI story starts tomorrow. And the moment that chapter starts, the chapter after that is already being planned somewhere. That's the pace we're at now. Make sure you're following for daily updates on everything that's coming next.